Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Earworms. And if this is your first time, welcome, period. Tonight is going to be an interesting night if everything goes all well. Here in North Florida, we're getting a bit of a storm. I hear it rumbling outside. The rain's coming down. And every now and then, when that happens, the power does tend to go out. But it doesn't sound all that powerful tonight, so hopefully we're all good. I'm going with the room background tonight. Just trying things out, trying to shake things up a little bit and see what works better, what works worse, as we go on. And all of it's to try and make the stream better. But in any case, tonight we have a cool night. We got the Ondes Martenot. Depends on where you're from. A lot of the Brits like to say Ondes. Some say Ondes. And it's a French instrument, so we should say Ondes Martenot. It's one of the classic instruments from electronic music history. It was a major influence with some of its innovations that we'll be looking at. And there's a number of performers whose names you will probably recognize as we get to them. A number of composers and uh, soundtrack composers that we'll be talking about, and those names you might recognize when we get to them. And then there'll be some new instruments that have come out, and there's constantly new instruments coming out that utilize some of the Ondes Martenot's um, innovations, and so we'll be talking about that as well. And if you're a tinkerer, you'll be able to maybe take a look at some things in this view of the Ondes Martenot that might inspire you a little bit in your tinkering hobbies and so forth. But without further ado, I should introduce the fact that now I can do some live music as we go. So that's a major innovation that I've made here with StreamYard. It doesn't normally do that, but I found a workaround. So anyway, let's get to our guests. We have some royalty with us, an emperor, in fact. I'm not quite sure where the empire resides, but as you've been getting to know, if you've been sticking with us each week, this is a very knowledgeable man that has a love for electronic music and the great things that our earworms are exploring.
We
Mr.
here in
Emperor
Bongo
Goodwin,
City
J.
like that
Goodwin.
Ondes Martenot. That's a big thing for us.
I'm not hearing anything. Is that my problem?
How interesting.
I don't see the little circle fluctuating either.
Whoop, that is.
So I don't know. I don't think I have.
You know, it wouldn't be earworms if there wasn't some sort of audio difficulty.
Or do I? This is a great start. We're good at that here.
Dr. Lawrence, come
Nope,
in,
not
Dr.
muted.
Lawrence.
Let me try something here.
We are broadcasting on frequency 549. It is going directly into your
Mr.
mind.
Adam Gray, do you happen to have audio?
Hello. Yes, I can hear you all just fine.
Okay.
Well, that's two out of three of us. That can
Two
hear.
out of three ain't
Does
bad.
anybody
I know,
hear
yeah.
me?
Meatloaf told me that.
Does
Well,
anybody
Jay can carry a
see me?
show. Let's just switch tracks real
Let's look
quick.
in the
I
camera.
think now is the time that we control his brain.
Yes.
Norm, Adam, it's a lot more comfortable when you're sitting on this side of the control room, isn't
Let me
it?
try something
Oh,
here.
believe me.
I'm going to pick myself out and see if I can.
Technology, everyone. It makes our lives better.
It's almost like a flashback to B-sides.
Well, how have you
Okay.
been, Jay?
All
Well,
right.
I'm
You
looking
know what
forward
I'm
to this
going to do?
Ondes Martenot.
I'm going to let you gentlemen continue to talk and make fun of me. I am going to try to
Let.
come out and come back into the studio. Hopefully the stream will keep going.
It should.
As far as he knows.
We have a new guest in the chat here.
Oh, look
Mike
at that.
Gurley. Welcome.
You don't actually get the expert. You do get the peanut gallery, though, is fully capable of making audio.
Hang on. Sorry, in the private chat there.
I think we'll keep going
Yes.
because we do have Psyche
Did you have a good time on Friday,
down here.
Jay?
Yeah, it was a good movie.
Yeah, I was real proud to be able to show that and
Okay, so let's go ahead and do that.
finally not completely trash something from top to bottom.
There was an embarrassing lack of theremin.
True. Not in the budget.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it all went into the thing.
Yeah. Odd timing on Friday's feature. Little bit odd.
Yeah. That was
Uncanny, I guess, would be the word.
Yeah. That's too bad. Well, I'm not sure. Lawrence maybe going out for a smoke break. Maybe get some milk.
Just like my dear old dad.
Yes,
used to say.
exactly. Like many of
I
our
was
fathers.
able to hear that.
Dad's back.
Oh no, Dad's back. Like, straighten up our rooms.
No, well, I don't know what it was, but I've seen people do that on stream before, so apparently it is a thing.
StreamYard's famous for gremlins. There's weird stuff running around in the circuits. It happens all the time.
Yeah, there are many
Alrighty.
built-in features. Reliability is not one of them.
Features, not
Yeah.
bugs.
Well, actually, I might as well say this. I don't care who knows it, but I am going to give Streamlabs a shot. Probably not next week, but the week after, just to see, because it is more economical than StreamYard. I've looked at it a little bit in the free version, and then I'll try the 7-day trial just to see.
I'm a little intimidated by Streamlabs. I did dig into it because it does offer a lot more features, but for what I do, very complex.
Yeah,
Very
OBS
complex.
has a pretty steep learning curve.
Oh man, I've struggled just keeping on top of StreamYard.
But it also gives you a lot of power.
Well,
Correct.
this isn't the Streamlabs app, it was called Streamlabs OBS, and I've used OBS itself for recording my videos, so I'm fine with that. But I don't want to stream with it because the tools for interacting with people and having you guys be able to interact with the chat and all that sort of thing doesn't really work that way. I mean, at least it doesn't come with it. You'd have to figure out some other external things to do that.
There's a lot of roll your own.
I'm talking about Streamlabs Talk Studio, which is
Right.
basically a lot like StreamYard. It's browser based, and I've looked at the inside. I think I'll
They
give
have-
it a shot, but we
We have
don't
like
need
10 different tiers of functionality. Yeah.
yeah. So, but it looks like the tier that I need would save me some, actually a substantial amount of money over StreamYard. But I'll keep the account and just try it. And so if I decide to just stick with the tried and trusted, fallible StreamYard, we'll stick with it. But
It's a
anything
great-
to save a little bit of money.
Yeah, StreamYard's a great, just basic daily driver. So, I'll be curious to see how your Streamlabs experiments go.
Yep. All right. Well, anyway, folks, in the audience, we should probably talk about things related to what we're going on about, the Ondes Martenot. Now, I don't know if you guys mentioned anything while I couldn't hear you that, I don't know.
We're both huge fans of the Ondes Martenot. That's definitely.
I ran into trouble because I was listening to a podcaster who kept calling it the Ondes Martenot. So I have the habit of calling it Ondes when it's Ondes. Just
I've heard it.
Martenot.
I'm not sure I've ever heard it called Ondes. I've heard it Onde, and then Onde.
Yeah.
And the Onde is like, okay, well, you kind of know French, but not really. It's on.
So
I'm still mispronouncing Moog, so
Nah.
that's okay. I plenty of people say Moog, plenty of people say Moog. But Ondes Martenot, it's good to pronounce it properly, I guess, because Ondes actually means something. It's not a name; it means waves. And so this instrument, and that is not a graphic of it. That's just that's just the background in the slide presentation. The Ondes Martenot, which if I hit this button here, we should go to it. Nope. That one. All right, there we go. Was invented by this gentleman, Maurice Marenot, in 1928. It's called the Wayfarer Martenot, and as we see another picture of it, we will actually start beholding why it was called such a thing. Okay, so here's a picture of what would be a component view, because we have a few pictures here that we're going to go over to learn about how it functions and stuff, or at least just from a bird's eye point of view. And this is a good picture because it shows the three speakers and the controller itself. Although I don't know, the word controller may not be the best way of putting it, since it does put out a sound signal, but it does need the speakers to sound, so might as well call it a keyboard controller. Although at first it was only a string controller. So in 1928, it would have just had the string on it. Later, a keyboard was added. But what you see around it are the three types of speakers. On the left, towards the top, that's kind of like the shape of a leaf in a way, is called the palm. And that is really a resonating chamber, kind of like a string instrument, like a lyre or a lute. I mean, the shape's not exactly right, and the number of strings would be quite different because here the strings are not played. They just vibrate in resonance and basically add this kind of like almost like a furry, fluffy sound to it in respects. At the same time, a nice warm sound comes out of the resonating chamber of the speaker. So that's one flavor of Ondes Martenot sound. And, the player can choose which speakers to go to and how much for each one and so forth. So it's like you have physical timbre choices here. Below
may I
Yeah,
ask
go
an
ahead.
ignorant question? Okay, so
Mhm.
on the resonance chamber, the acorn shape at the top there, are those strings across it?
Yes.
Wow,
Yeah,
very
those are
cool.
strings. I believe I mentioned them, but basically, yeah, they're not played, they just vibrate. And so they vibrate on the face of the instrument. The top surface basically receives a lot of vibrations. I don't know exactly what specific wood it's made out of. And all the things I've kind of looked at, I haven't found that out. I'm sure the information's out there, but I'm sure it's something like you would have choices like you do with guitar, maybe, if you wanted to build one. I don't know what Maurice Martenot decided to use in the first one, but it would be a wood that would conduct vibrations. It has a hole in it, so it's kind of like the body of a guitar, except there's strings over it, plenty of them, in order
Wow.
to get just this vibratory sound of the strings, which gives you a bit of a spring reverby sound, as well as kind of like I said before, I've heard it on all these different videos, and it sounds like a bit of a fluffiness, like a buzzing that sounds kind of fluffy, and it's a pretty cool sound. Incidentally, I do have links in the description if anyone wants to kind of hear the sound of it at the same time as I'm talking about it. We got to be careful about playing material that's copyrighted here. And some of the videos, while maybe not being of official musical performances, they may be part of series where it's copyrighted material as for educational purposes. So I didn't take the chance. But I do have links down there for people to follow along. Let me just talk about the next two speakers, and then we can kind of talk about this in more detail. The speaker below on the bottom left is called the métallique, and it's basically a metal plate in the front. That's what you see, the gray there, and it's within a wooden frame around it. It's loosely held in there because that metal plate is kind of like a gong, and basically there's a speaker driver behind it that vibrates it. And gongs can be played basically using two different kinds of strokes, the kind of short rolling strokes that basically vibrate them and kind of resonate out sound. And then, of course, you can strike them a little bit harder. And this was capable of doing both. If there was like an articulation at the beginning of a sound that was played on the keyboard or on the string of the Ondes Martenot, you would hear kind of like this punctuated attack. And the speaker driver basically could either rumble it from behind, but sometimes one of those movements of this moving driver behind it would knock it, and it actually sounds kind of like a gong being hit. And then to the right of the instrument within the wooden case, which changed over time, is just basically a regular cone speaker, a cardboard speaker inside, where it's like a cardboard cone on a speaker driver that vibrates. And then the grills over time changed. That's just a wooden grill that you see there from one of the earlier designs. So go ahead, gentlemen. I've been spewing for a little too long here, I think.
Oh, I mean, it's interesting that, I mean, you're probably right in to call the keyboard a controller, because you get a lot of the tonality from the actual speakers themselves, the voices. Each speaker substantially affects it, whereas later synths would do it electrically. He's doing it physically with the variety of the output devices.
Sorry.
Interesting, whatever that was.
Accidentally popped open a tab there. Sorry.
Yeah. One thing that my wife said in the chat was acoustic synths are making a comeback now. And Mike Gorley, welcome, Mike. So the strings are like the sympathetic, strings on a sitar and other. Yeah.
That's really fascinating to me. I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, they are similar in that way. I think here, like when I've heard it on videos, they sound a little bit more rattly, but they are on the face and so forth like that, exposed to the open air.
I mean,
But
I'm guessing
Mike,
you're going to get something akin to analog reverb, where you have a couple of springs stretched across.
that's one thing I
Very
was
cool.
thinking, and I've actually heard in the sound. Yeah, it does give a bit of a spring reverby sound, but it's not like going to sound like a spring within a box, because now it's on the surface.
Right.
So it sounds a little furrier than that. Now, incidentally, Mike Gorley really should, he is an instrument lover as well as player. He collects instruments from around the world. And for people here on the Re-Rub, I'm going to basically put his username down the description. I'd like people to check out his channel. He plays Native American flutes. He also plays string instruments. The dutar, a 2-string instrument from Persia. He also plays cigar box guitar. Now, my wife made 2 instruments for him, and a variety of different guitars and so forth. Really undervalued channel there. Some great music, and he does some electronic stuff. I'm hoping to have him on one of these weeks.
So did Martenot, did he tune the strings on the Leaf speaker to get harmonics, specific harmonics?
Those look like tuners there. They look like tuners there, and I would assume he did. But in hearing it, and once again, I wish I could. I wonder if I could get away with playing just a little bit of something.
I know there's a sample on the Wikipedia page, and I would guess that you'd be safe to play that clip.
Well, one other thing is, I think I think I'll be fine with this. Let me see. I have to find the right one. Um, and this will be useful for later with Barry Gray when we talk about this composer that utilized the Ondes Martenot. Now, this audio isn't going to be shared yet, and I don't want it to be because I want to find the spot. But basically, here we could hear a little bit of this. I've gotten the section where it's showing the speaker, and we might be able to hear a little bit of sound of this. I'm going to risk it.
Go for it. Let's live on the edge.
Yeah, and let's now we got to share the tab. Yes.
No risk it, no biscuit.
Yep.
It worked for my channel.
A successful one, by the way, folks. Link in
Not
the
monetized,
description.
but successful.
B-roll stage down in the description. Both these gentlemen on Friday nights.
Oh, thank you kindly.
It's an adventure. The movies are
We
really
do enjoy ourselves.
interesting, and then some of those clips that you guys find, I don't know.
Yeah,
All
they're
right, let me
interesting in the way
see.
that when somebody's setting you up for a blind date, they say she has a good personality, and oh, okay, yeah, I understand.
Okay, so I assume you are seeing this YouTube video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, this gentleman is named Francois Evans, and he's a Martenot player. And you see on the left side of the screen a little bit of the palm there. He's about to demonstrate it. And we're buffering.
Of course we are.
YouTube is thinking about whether or not this is allowable. Don't tell me it's not going to work.
Well, I won't tell you, but you can assume.
Jay Goodwin is a walking ISP curse.
Yes.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Perfect.
Okay, folks,
Technology.
this link is actually down in the description. So if you guys want to hear it, I mean, because I can't just play any old Martenot stuff because there's 3 different speakers.
Right.
And you need to isolate one really to kind of, if you're going to talk about it. Otherwise, it's just part of the mix or it's not being used.
Give that tab a refresh and see if we can bring it back.
Okay.
Yeah, you're at 5:57 was the time looked like. Ooh, 6:30.
It's still trying.
Wow, that's a shame.
Well, here you see it mic'd.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by the strings over the sound hole there.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember like in my much younger days, experimenting with things like putting small speakers inside guitars,
Mm-hmm.
and getting the strings to get into sympathetic vibration with what you were playing.
Now, this is the other cone speaker showing it from behind. There's the speaker driver. And you can kind of see it there a little bit. It's hard for me to scrub through accurately. Oh, boy. But here we see the palm on the top. I guess you don't see my mouse, but...
We do actually see your pointer.
Yeah, I can see your cursor.
Oh, cool. So at the top, you see they mic'd the palm, and it's opening. I guess that would be because if you need to fill up a larger room, you would need to do that. And they close mic'd it because I guess the further the mic's away, the more you will pick up the other speakers. So they want to isolate it. Down below is the cone. And this one, they don't have a grill on the front. But the one we saw in the picture was a cone speaker, but it had a wooden grill.
Right.
And then here to the right next to his face, is the gong speaker. And it really does sound like boom, on some of the punctuated attacks. Although you need to do that with the controller on the Ondes Martenot because it doesn't have velocity response on its keyboard. And then on the string, it would, I guess if you pluck the string, no. But that's not the way it's normally played. You mostly slide the string. So anyway, yeah, it's one of those things where on the controller part, the left hand has these switches where you can kind of like control the amplitude. So you can make a pointed attack that way.
Right.
And it does actually sound like you're kind of like tapping a gong if you do it right. So, yeah, so otherwise it's a metal plate kind of reverb.
Yeah. So was it like a mild steel for the gong, or did it just have like a mild steel center, or did it have a mass driver that the magnet is throwing out to strike the gong?
Well, I'm pretty sure it has the mass driver.
Okay.
Although I didn't hear it described to me because in those terms. But
Right.
the way it was described in all these different things
Almost like a
where they do
solenoid.
mention it, yeah, there is definitely a driver, and it is impacting on the gong.
Right.
But it can be in such a way, depending on how you have it positioned, that it's vibrating back and forth and just, stimulating it.
Mm-hmm.
In which case, you don't hear a punctuated attack, but rather, just like the vibrating metal sound.
Right. So either messing with their current is probably what's controlling how far the striker goes
Yes,
out and how fast it can cycle.
exactly. And
Right.
that's electroacoustics,
Yep.
folks. So I'm going to unshare right now. We'll go back to our slides. Uh, Let me get them back. There we go. And we can move along to see this picture as it's another formation, but this was like a replica version done later, but it was a replica version of like the earliest Ondes Martenot. So this one itself isn't a picture of the earliest, but it's a replica of that. And the main thing that you can visually see there that's different is they do have kind of like a fabric grill on the
Cone speaker.
on the cone speaker there.
So did Martineau manufacture the instruments and then others kind of picked up and copied, or did he license it for manufacture, or was it kind of a one-off that
Well,
he made and then others put
I
together?
believe it was him making them, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about any of the licensing deals that he made. I know he lived on into like 1980, so he was making them for a good long time, and there were like 7 different generations of them.
Mm-hmm.
Many of the changes might be, some of them were small, some of them were bigger, but it largely looked the same, except for, as you see from the earliest version to later on, they did add a keyboard in this slide. And so afterwards, I know his son went on to make one in the 80s called, well, it was also called an Ondes Martenot, but it was actually a digital one, and
Hmm.
in the 80s. Now, I'm assuming, because I could not get hardly any information about it, but I'm assuming the digital refers to the MIDI implementation, and probably the way the control was interpreted, like the ribbon controller, was probably interpreted um, digitally, because I don't think it was like this, where you basically had a vibrating string pulling on a drum that gets rotated to, kind of translate the vibrations.
Right. Right.
Because here in this picture, you can see in the middle of the keyboard, the white and black keys that we're accustomed to seeing. The bottom of that, you see kind of like a row of places where you see some brass heads and spaces where there are no brass heads. That is the surface where a metal ring was pulled along, and what went through the ring was a string that goes horizontally from left to right. You can
Is
barely see
the
it
is
there.
the string making contact with the ring, or is it more of a theremin thing where it's proximity
It
when you
makes
sort of
contact.
float it? It does make contact. Okay.
Yeah, and when you do swiping motions on it, you do hear kind of like a swipe on a string sound.
Mm-hmm.
So it does have a pull to it, and you can kind of hear the friction as it goes along. And what the player feels there is if there's a dip, that means it's a place of a white key and you're on pitch. And when you feel the brass head, that's where there's a black key. and you're on pitch with that key. So you could kind of you have tactile feeling of which key you're on. And so that's how you could tune. You were playing more accurately because the string is continuous. So you try to get in the center of those indicators. And as you pull the ring along, the string, it vibrates, and the string itself is attached to a drum on the inside where it's the string coils up into the drum and basically pulls at it. And that's how, by turning that drum, it kind of like conveys its vibrations. And then those are interpreted by an oscillator later. I didn't get to see any kind of schematic for it and the inner guts of how that all works, just a description that it is a string to drum relationship to convey the vibration, and then it goes to an oscillator.
Right, and for the clarity of the audience and everything, those keys are simply visual aid to let you know where you are. That you're not playing the keys.
No,
you're
later
moving
versions they did work.
Oh, did
and
they
you
actually?
had the option.
I did read that yeah, originally it's something akin to like looking at the frets,
Right.
but later on they added features where it would actually affect the signal.
The one that we're seeing here, I believe, is a 6th generation that also gets described in that video I tried to play. Basically, when he played them, he showed that you could, on the left and right sides of the keyboard, there are screws. They're kind of like on the they're kind of like inside the side panels there, but accessible from the front, so that you could basically loosen them, and that loosened the keys a bit. And then you could actually, when playing a key, rock your finger left and right and get vibrato.
Oh, nice.
So it actually had tactile vibrato in a mechanical form there.
Cool.
And but was not velocity sensitive. It didn't matter how hard you hit the key, it wouldn't translate that to amplitude.
Right.
On the left side, I think the next one, maybe we get a better picture. Here we go. Yeah, where the left hand is at the bottom of the screen, that is the controller where you control amplitude. The white rocking switches there are basically like almost like dimmer switches, and that's how you control volume, and I think the envelope, which is like your attack and release on it. And then there were other controls there for going to the different speakers. And I basically have a video in the description, the one I tried to play, that's about Barry Gray's music, because they actually used his Ondes Martenot that he owned. He bought in 1969, and they were basically commemorating his music for the TV shows and films he did with Jerry Anderson. And he utilized Ondes Martenot in those a bit, and they were describing how it worked and everything, and it was a good description of it. And this looks like the same model, although I don't think this is from the same video. It looks like it was one of the more popular models, especially like in the 60s, because it was the one that was available. And because it retained a lot of those early attributes, like the speakers, and it had the flexibility of the keyboard that you could do vibrato on, as well as the strings. So when you wanted to do glissandos that kind of like were really smooth and had a swipe to them like strings do, you could go from one to the other. I'm going to try to imitate the sound a little bit here, but like... And so basically it was, you could basically just pull along like that, and you didn't hear individual notes in between. You would just go from one pitch to another pretty smooth, but sometimes you could really hear the rattling of the strings on the palm speaker, and that would emphasize the friction of the string when you're swiping along it.
Yeah, so that's so the left hand on the overall controller. Are you able to control like the mix to the different speakers to tailor the voice to the sound that you're looking for? Okay, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, basically it was a one spot where you could do most everything. Eventually there were ones that had multiple waveform oscillators. I don't know if that was in the 7th generation or in Jean-Luc Martinot's digital version, but you could with these, the earlier version, you could get a variety of timbres just with just that controller section that we're looking at
Mm-hmm.
there.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just
really in this way. I mean, it's to some degree this is additive synthesis, right? You have the bass line, the bass sound, which is the string in rotation
right.
and that tone, right? And if you just piped that out on its own, it would have its own. It'd be a fairly simple sound to it or whatever. But the different speakers are actually adding sounds to them, and by being able to control the mix on that, you can either increase or decrease, um, those additional sounds, which is much different than what we do with analog synth, where it's all subtractive. More, I mean, in some ways, it's like FM operator.
Yeah, but it also had a filtering system, at least later versions, where you could filter it, and there you get a subtractive
Mm-hmm.
aspect of synthesis.
Yeah,
It's really
combining
hard
both.
to it's hard to describe because I actually was digging and I couldn't find thorough descriptions of stage by stage. Now there might be a site that I didn't find. But there might be a site out there that has that, but I wasn't finding anything where I could see, okay, this generation had this, and then this generation had this, and this generation had this, and clear changes between them. Although that's something that I'll probably keep on looking for, and maybe in future episodes can come back to it and as part of other things. But yeah, it did have filtering at least at some point, and so we had practice synthesis. And I see there, Roberto Cejudo in the chat mentioned this and how the theremin was used in motion pictures. And this one was as well. And we'll be getting to that as we move along. Let me see if I can move the slide forward. Oh, there we go. Thank you. All right. This reminds me that down in the description, I do have a link here to Thomas Bloch. In an improvisation he did on the Martenot, kind of demonstrating, the different sounds of the speakers and different sounds that he was able to get from using the left-hand controller. It's an improvisation where he does very little description of it, but you can hear and look and kind of interpret things. And you know what I'm going to do in the other window here? I am going to try to see if I can get that because it's worth a shot. But he's also on the slides because he was, or is still, he's still alive, one of the great Ondes Martenot players out there, and definitely worth taking a listen to. But this improvisation should not be copyrighted.
Yeah,
Unless
if you're not reusing a melody, you should be perfectly fine.
well, we'll see, because this might be part of a sound of a documentary. But let me see here. It's playing. Oh,
It's not
and
playing for us.
I
Yeah,
know, but I wanted to make sure there was no commercials at the beginning and stuff too. So let's see here. I am going to go back to StreamYard and share. One of these days, we'll have a smoother transition between these things. But
Well, and as Mike Gorley points out in the chat, he found one on Reverb, but it was sold and it was not cheap. Yes, I imagine they're not. If nothing else, yeah, you're not replacing this with a Raspberry Pi. There's
no.
there's a tremendous amount of physical in this instrument, and
I'm fascinated by the I've been searching for the word, but like it's not that it's overly complex, but the number of elements involved in this one single instrument is kind of fascinating. It's like you've got an entire drum kit basically that's all interconnected for a synthetic sound. It's pretty fascinating.
And you had to take care of each component pretty well, and then maybe adjust it for the different rooms
Yeah.
that
Oh,
you
certainly,
perform
yeah.
in. So let me see if we can get this up here. I'm sharing now. It was playing for me before. Let's see if it plays for me now.
In StreamYards? Don't be ridiculous.
As soon as you try to
maybe
share
the
screen,
JavaScript is just crapping the bed.
Oh, that's a shame.
Because you're putting so much load on it from...
But anyway, I have it listed as Thomas Bloch improvisation. Folks, while you're watching this, you could probably call that up in another tab, play it, and you can hear things as we go. It'd be just nice if my guests could kind of hear it as we go and we talk about it.
Oh, that's a shame.
Man, what the hell? All these other streamers are able to play videos and
I think
like
it is maybe that you're CPU bound.
I think so too.
Wow, it's a Core i9.
I actually got kicked out of my own StreamYard on Friday, so
yes,
I tried to show too many things.
Yeah, we will work forward and see how we can improve our limitations. But in any case,
would it be possible for one of us to click on the link and share a stream so that you're not using crunching power?
Maybe it's my internet connection. I think I get about 11 megabits per second up speed, so that might have something to do with it. And my wife is over there on her computer.
Yeah, if she's streaming us as well, then
yeah, you've got
users.
But I don't know if I can give you presenter access unless I put you on the team, and there's only room for one on the team other than me. Unless you guys know.
I think if we present, then you can decide whether to accept.
Okay, try it. The link is down in the description of the video. It says Thomas Bloch improvisation. Right. I can try and get that out of the description of the video.
Jay, are you on this?
I'm trying it now.
Okay. I've got a bunch of other windows open, so.
Yeah, I am also. Yeah.
Okay.
StreamYard is only giving me the description before I added all the extra things in YouTube.
Yeah, I've got. So let's see if I can. Well, I might have to pop that out as a separate window.
I can probably find it. How about I'll get that link, and you can check on the present thing. Alrighty. There's like 4 of us here trying to.
Oh, for God's sake.
We're doing it live, folks.
We're doing it live.
Keeping it live.
No. One of these things is not like the other.
Ondes, some Hazlewood, what? Oliver Messiaen. Thomas Bloch's improvisation here. I have the link. Do you want me to drop it in the private chat? I could put it in the chat for everybody. I don't know which one you have open. I'll drop it in the private chat. Confusion. Hopefully it'll work there. It'll work like the link.
I have great faith in our almighty emperor.
All right. Did you see the link?
Okay, I'm sharing the...
Okay, now you should have a prompt there for Jay wanting to share something.
And okay, I don't see one though. Let's see.
Well,
start.
Should and is are two different words for a reason.
Computers never lie.
Well,
software, on the other hand.
All right, when you hit present, what happened?
It says you're sharing Firefox.
Okay. So it told me.
Yeah, so below the main screen where we all are and all of your clips, there should be either on Jay's icon or on a separate icon. There should be a.
No, I just have to
share
my camera off. Oh, over there. Ah,
science. Look at it. It's working.
All right.
Look at that. Not bad for a couple of old guys. Here we go.
Now, do you guys hear it?
No. Jay, your
Neither do I.
audio is
Yeah, I mean, I do,
on?
but that's the problem.
Okay.
Yeah, my audio's on. I know
But
that
there is
we've
a
had
share
problems
audio
with.
option. Oh, you have to be using a Chrome-based browser.
Of course,
Oh,
I don't.
balls. Of course.
Well, let me.
We're
Let's go to the
inching
tape.
towards success, folks. Stay tuned.
Just keep
Join
that
us on our
link in your
journey.
buffer.
Buffer? I don't even know her.
All right, let me try Chrome, and I'll be killing you.
I'll be killing you.
In
Hey,
all the
Stitch is in
old
the chat.
familiar faces.
Who's
Hello,
that?
friend.
Oh, I recognize that icon.
Oh, he's a B-Sides regular.
Oh,
Nice to
enjoy
see you,
last week's
Stitch.
theremin video. That's cool.
Dismiss.
Oh yeah, we also got
Remote.
a great feedback on last week's theremin episode from Dread Rat Earth Dragon, who left a comment with a lot of information about theremin that viewers would probably, would like to know. And so thank
Very
you,
nice.
Dread Rat. Yeah, and his channel is also one to check out. It has him and some of his theremin performances. So I didn't know of him before last week, otherwise I would have shared.
Okay, I have shared a Chrome.
Okay.
I shared a Chrome.
No sound, but there is a switch. Like when you share the Chrome tab, there's a switch.
Yeah,
the
what
right.
mine just says is it gives me the option of not sharing notifications, and I turn that. I left it so that it wasn't disabled, so that any audio would be there.
Hmm. Oh.
Well,
We'll try it one more time.
yeah.
Shall we?
In your sharing, you are sharing not a window, but a Chrome tab. You got to
I'm
make sure
sharing
you
a
do it that
screen.
way.
And so that it allows me to pick a window.
Oh,
no,
maybe
that's
if-
not the way. You got to select it from the column that says Chrome tab.
Yeah, share screen might cut the
Yes,
audio.
sharing a window or sharing a screen does not include audio on StreamYard.
Yeah, I don't have the option of sharing a tab.
Oh,
It says
boo.
select
Oh,
window
because
or screen.
because right now StreamYard is open in Firefox, right?
Yes.
That would be why.
Oh,
Since
well,
StreamYard is not in Chrome, it doesn't realize there's a Chrome tab at its access that will allow it to share audio.
the hell with that.
It was a valiant effort, lads.
Okay. Well,
We're all learning here.
And it's
We're all
back to eye
Damn
candy.
Look at that. Look at it.
I can tell you, it's
Alrighty.
wonderful to listen to.
It
I can
sounds
sit and
amazing.
listen to it the whole time. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, well, it was mostly so we could hear and talk, but the audience, of course, can be hearing some of the stuff and can talk with us about it, and we'll be happy to share it if we can notice it while we're doing this stuff.
I was able to hear and talk, and that
Roberto
makes me
does
superior
say
to the rest of you.
okay. Well, it's okay with Roberto. All right, so we go on. This is Oliver Messiaen, a 20th century composer and someone who early on did write for the theremin. One such piece is this one here. I couldn't include the little accents because I don't know exactly how to type that in using.
No carrots or cedillas for you.
Well, I'm sure I can, but I don't know how. But
Yeah.
and so it's fait, I think. Fait de bear.
Accent aigu.
Which I don't know what that means. I should have looked it up, but I didn't. I'm sorry, folks. But it is in the description, and the video does look like this. I was trying to find one with a footage of people performing it, but no, it was just a score view. But if you look at the score, and it's a little small, but you're able to see that it's actually written for theremins, and you only see like 6 indications there, but I think there was a time where there was 9, or at least I believe I read in this description it was for 9 Ondes Martenots, and so there we go.
Oh.
Actually, maybe we could play it through your system.
God, I bet they were they had fun getting them all precisely in tune first before performing.
Yeah. Like Adam, I was able to hear at least some little sound there. Maybe you could play something through your microphone.
It's not me doing homework during the show.
But I mean, that might be our way to do it.
What link would you what link would you like me to play?
It's in the private chat.
You want but do you want this particular piece of music or the prior
yeah? Since we're on this, maybe this one.
Okay.
If you could look up Fit de Beau.
What'd you call
me? Yeah, I know right now there's like college professors out there saying this guy never was one of us.
It's gonna take me a minute to type that. My foreign language skills are oof.
Let me
Des.
He's got a link in the description. I'll paste it in.
Yeah, if you could just pop the link, that would make it 10 times easier for me.
We are doing the copy pasta. This is very exciting.
Okay, got it. Let's see what we've got here. Okay, this is a 30-minute video. What would you like to hear? Just the beginning of it?
Yeah. Just the first time on this stream where people can hear the Ondes Martenot.
Should be able to hear that.
Why do you keep using these dirty words? Should. It took me decades to teach my wife to stop using such foul language around me.
And the reason why you're not getting much response out of us is because we don't really hear anything.
Yeah, we're not hearing anything, Adam.
That's interesting. Okay, so my system sounds you can hear, but you can't hear my... Okay. All right, let me try sharing the tab. Give me 1 second here. It is a very quiet...
I'll have to hold my cell phone up to the microphone.
Quiet piece. I've seen weirder things happen.
I've done weirder things.
Okay. Wow, I've never done it from this side. Present.
Stitch, what's your language in chat?
I know, I was about to say that's what she said.
Share audio checkbox on the next window. Follow these steps to share our video with audio.
Oh, I just literally thought it was something that was coming out your speakers because I was able to hear.
It's probably how I have my mixer set up, but something is definitely keeping you from hearing my YouTube tab. So let's just.
Oh well, I don't think it'll let you do that. I don't know.
Hang on. Also, share tab audio.
Yes.
Share. Can you see my screen?
Let me see in the down.
Can you allow it?
See something. I am going to allow this. Is this it?
Oh, listen to that.
Progress. That's as loud as I can get it.
Yeah,
people ludicrously quiet.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
Well,
don't worry. We hear sound.
Yeah,
we're like kids with transistor radios holding a little
crystal radio.
Yeah. Do we want to skip forward and look for something a little bit beefier?
That looks exciting.
And that's triple forte.
Let's skip around a little so we don't have to worry about the copyright
details.
Yeah. Okay, I think we could pause just for a moment, and this is where you can could say to folks that in this score we're seeing for 6, and that's what I've heard before. But I know that I think there was a version of this piece done for 9. But in this, I mean, but getting together 9 Ondes Martenots in the same place,
Yeah, the
same
whole
time
production
is a
run
bit
had
of
to
a
get together.
yeah, that is an achievement. So 6, you're already at a victory, and it looks like it may have been at least this looks like Sibelius or Finale to me. So this is probably just made for this version. But in any case, you could hear it has the sound in that context of something that's like somewhat like chamber music. It sounds like instruments, where he was using it in a way to try and imitate some of the inflections of woodwind sounds.
Yeah.
And because it is 20th century classical music, and that's kind of like what he was going for. He was always a great composer of that used timbre of instruments in interesting ways, and he would even use woodwind instruments in combinations with one another in order to get bird sounds. And 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 even during this period, he included a lot of that in his work. I think what we'll do is move on and talk about the next piece. So I'm going to switch over back to.
Would you like me to close this up?
Well, I'm just going to switch over. So you could close that up. Thank you, man.
Sure, I'm glad it worked.
We're going to have to learn how to coordinate this.
Yeah, there's a very clarinet sound to it.
Yeah, that's all. That's all I was hearing. Really, was clarinet oboe sort of tone.
Yeah, and then he also composed a symphony that utilized, of course, an orchestra, a piano, and Ondes Martenot. But the version that I found on YouTube does not seem to have an Ondes Martenot in it.
That does somewhat negate the purpose of the.
No, it is there. It is there.
Oh.
It's just I listened through a lot of it, and it was hard for me to pick it out. But then again, he probably worked the sound in. If you look towards the right in the bottom right corner,
yeah, you can see the speakers.
You can see the speaker, but the piano is more prominent in the. So it's more like a concerto because the piano plays throughout, but it's called a symphony, and the Ondes Martenot was in it. And this was called
Turangalila.
There we go. Turangalila Symphony. And it was basically, kind of like a next stage in what Oliver Messiaen was doing, and finally including the Ondes Martenot in a symphony. And then it got a little bit of blowback from this guy, Pierre Boulez, who is also a well-known 20th century composer. And essentially, he didn't like the sound of the symphony. And I think he didn't really care for it. But the thing is, he didn't. It's hard to tell from what he was talking about, whether he was talking about, because I heard somebody describing what his complaints were, like quoting him. And it was hard to tell if he was talking about specifically the Martenot or not. And it was probably everything together. But somehow it had some major repercussions on the Martenot, because now a lot of the 20th century composers kind of gravitated away from it. And Boulez actually did have a piece at one point for Martenot. Maybe... he said some more things after writing that piece where it's like he wasn't as fond of it. So it basically did not get continued, or shall we say, as much respect as it should have, I guess, in 20th century music after that point, until, I guess, the electroacoustic composers came in.
So when's kind of the salad days for the Ondes Martenot, and then kind of where does it drop out of use or interest for most music?
in the 20th century art music world, it was like in the 30s, and then after Boulez and stuff, it subsided. And then in the 50s and 60s, especially the 60s, it started coming back, and we're going to be looking at some
So it
people
kind of tracks
instrumental in that.
the same
But it
pattern
was
as the
coming
theremin.
back in a way, but here was, yeah, in a way, because it was coming back a little later, like the theremin in the 40s was already getting a lot of appreciation in film.
Mm-hmm.
The Martenot, it wasn't until, there may have been some before, but it didn't, I guess it didn't resonate as much until it was used by Barry Gray in his works.
Oh well, yeah, I mean, it
And
makes
that
some
would be
sense
in the
because
60s.
the Martineau is more of a musical instrument purely. The
Hmm.
theremin could be used for sound effects.
Right. Well, so can the Martineau in many ways. I mean,
Right,
you could
but
just do
it's
some swipes with that string, but you could probably do swipes on the string for those kinds of reverby, springy, reverby sounds with simpler devices.
right.
And so it wasn't bringing to the table the simplicity,
It
I
for
guess.
me, the theremin has less of a human voice to it. It just sounds more synthetic. The others are they sound very human. They sound very organic, and
Or
I don't know how to
acoustic.
describe it. Yeah, I don't have the lexicon for this, but
Yeah, there's an acoustic quality to the Martineau. And again, it makes sense because of the the way that it's making sound, and the theremin, the the ability to do quick vibratos, and then just little jerks of the hands. You get these really odd alien soundscapes that really do fit with science fiction and things like that,
mm-hmm.
or hallucination dream world kind of things you're doing. Again, the Martineau seems more of a musical instrument and doesn't lend itself as easily to having that odd quality to it.
Sorry, I was laughing there, but Roberto says that Pierre Boulez was caca.
Was caca.
Caca, and then cool guy. This is Barry Gray. Now, the first I've heard of Barry Gray was, of course, with his work with Jerry Anderson, where most people might hear of him. But the first I heard of Jerry Anderson's work was really when I started listening to this thing called the Mr. Brown Alliance,
Yes.
especially some of their
Oh.
early
Wretched hive
streams.
of scum and villainy. That one.
That is a rough
Yeah.
bunch over there.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the first I've heard of it because as far as I know, titles like, well, at least the TV series, the different TV series, like Thunderbirds, I don't think that was released over here, was it?
Yeah. Well,
It
it was like
depends. It's
UHF.
regional. It was regional because I did not grow up watching it on broadcast television, but I became aware of it like in my high school years. If you were on the West Coast, you got a lot more Asian things like Sandy Frank. If you're on the East Coast, you're more likely to see some Thunderbirds or something like that from Jerry Anderson. But a tremendous talent, regardless.
Well, I grew up in Pennsylvania, and well, I could have missed it. Maybe it was just totally overwhelmed by Star Blazers or something.
Yeah, I remember seeing Thunderbirds. Certainly, like when I would visit my grandparents in Dallas, it would be on like the UHF channels. Not so much on your big three networks.
Yeah, and well, there wasn't much animated or quasi-animated stuff on the big three networks. I mean, I didn't grow up with cable. We pretty much just had the big three plus PBS. But then,
Folks also might know Jerry Anderson from UFO and Space 1999.
Yeah.
If you haven't
yeah,
seen
Space
the,
1999 also, I didn't know about. Last night is when I decided, okay, I've heard Brown talk about this, and it's part of the Martineau discussion. And so I was checking out some of the episodes that I could find. At least the first episode of Space 1999 is on YouTube. And I'm not going to try and share it here because I'm pretty sure it'll get flagged for that.
Yeah.
And also Captain Scarlet and the
Mm-hmm.
Mysterons. And in fact, the sound of the Mysterons was generated using the Ondes Martenot. Barry Gray actually bought one in 1969, and in the first video that didn't play, that whole discussion and demonstration of the Martenot was at an event commemorating Gray's music. And so as I was hearing it in the music, I kind of modeled my little imitation after it. Although, when I do that, sometimes if I adjust it, or not sometimes, but when I adjust it, I can basically get rid of the swoop and then play the sound. And it sounds a little rattly there. That's me trying to do the strings. And then I can turn up a knob and get more of a swoop if I want it. And then add a little vibrato in. So, I mean, that's what I was kind of hearing, although you would have to transfer that over to the recording in the like 60s and 70s and it going to tape and it sounding less, less expansive. And definitely it kind of worked with the other 70s sounds at the time in the music. Like that music was fun, man. It was like the same whether you were watching sci-fi or a car chase for a police and detective.
Yeah, a lot of
TV
experimentation
series.
of sounds.
Well, with the other stuff like whether it's car chase music or sci-fi music, they sounded pretty similar in the 70s, except for like the electronic sounds. And
Right,
that's what
right.
helped separate it. But in any case, there's a lot that could be said, but I unfortunately somehow missed it until last night. And so I checked out Captain Scarlet and the Mysterons, and that was pretty cool watching the marionettes. It was like marionette animation. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah,
Totally
I can't
how
remember
did
what they called it.
Marionation.
I think originally it was marionation, and then they came up with a copyright word that they used for those puppet shows. But it's
Well,
what Team America is based off of. Is
Super Marionation.
Super Marionation. That was it.
Yeah, let me call up a picture. I could probably share that, Captain, even though this is visual and has nothing to do with the Martenot.
Hilariously, earlier today, I happened upon someone had taken Danger Zone from Top Gun and put it to the Thunderbirds, and it was absolute genius.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of Jerry Anderson's work, and I'm ashamed to say I haven't retained really any of the audio in my head. I want to go back and rewatch some of this stuff now and pay closer attention.
Yeah, let me see. I can share this. It's going to be clumsy, and they call it ham-fisted me trying to do this, but
You're singing the song of my people.
All right. So I guess you guys see that.
Yeah, Captain Scarlet.
Yeah, and so you could probably see from the faces and everything there. I know this is probably not the best picture. In fact, I thought we would get a fuller picture. Let's see here. Let's go back. But, you could see from the faces there how it was looking in the series. And I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. Like, here we go. Now you can see at least the torso.
I can't recommend his work enough. So if anyone is listening or watching and you haven't seen any Jerry Anderson productions, you must run, don't walk, and at least watch an episode of Captain Scarlet or Thunderbirds. It's so entertaining.
Zoom in. Okay, there we go. So they look like action figures, and it really would have.
marionettes that have controls for they have remote control for the facial expressions and head turning and things like that. So you'll see them shot like in full body, and it'll be much more obvious that they're marionettes. But like here where he's sitting in the chair, it's all being controlled from underneath. So you have a variety of puppets for a variety of tasks.
And you have differences between like they're walking somewhere. That's usually a static head and all that. Then when they sit down, when the eyes and the mouth moves and all that, it's a different.
And he invented all of this all on his own. There was no one else doing anything remotely like this, and he was the master for decades.
Yeah, well, I'm going to get lost here now, so we'll stop that presenting. But you get the idea. For those that didn't know, like I didn't know, but I watched that Captain Scarlet first episode on YouTube last night, and it's pretty cool.
I love it.
I don't know. Yes. I don't know what that whole thing was. SIG. You know, like anytime they would say like instead of Roger, in communications, they say SIG, which is like, are you spelling out Sieg?
They're missing an E.
There's a lot.
Fireball XL5 was great.
There's a lot of acronyms and there's a lot of sort of terminology within each different show that they'll, SIG probably means something like stay or seeing in green or something like that. There's a lot of jargon that he invented.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it was pretty deep stuff. And one of the things is if you're doing that now, we're seeing Barry Gray here as a picture. He was the composer.
No relation.
Well,
not after he went to go get milk and some cigarettes.
Hey, you leave my grandma alone.
He certainly did.
Well, you are correct, sir. It was his mother.
Terrible.
Remember, the lineage was Grandma Gray, Barry Gray, Adam Gray.
She changed the spelling to an EY after Grandpa.
Yes, the shame was too much.
Okay, but we're seeing his picture. But the gentleman we're talking about, Jerry Anderson, was the producer, and his wife Sylvia Anderson was a producer as well. And in fact, the next one we're going to look at was a film they produced, and Ondes Martenot was used by Barry Gray in composing the soundtrack for this film and some of the sequences. Journey to the Far Side of the Sun. 1969, some places says 1968. I guess there's different release dates, probably in Europe and
overseas,
Americas. Yeah. And here's some credits in case people recognize names. Sorry, I didn't have a picture of Jerry Anderson there, but produced by Jerry Anderson.
I'm very excited to go back and rewatch this with my ears a little wider open.
Yeah, it's been a few years since I've seen this movie.
Oh, yeah. But I also saw the first episode of Space 1999 last night, which has people in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, see, that was broadcast. I remember watching that as a kid.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I didn't see that. Wow. But
it was broadcast
cool.
and fairly well marketed in the mid 70s.
Yep.
There was a lot of there were some toys out there.
I guess I was maybe just a little young. I was born in 74, so.
Yeah, you've been a little young. Yeah.
Yeah. Jay and I got a couple years on you.
But whatever. I was close behind. So anyway, that might have been some of the stuff that I was wondering, what is that kind of Star Wars looking stuff, but that wasn't Star Wars. But anyway, it was a good episode, and so I'll be checking them out. Sometime. Yeah, I almost want to talk about movies now, but anyway, back to the music. Directed by good old Robert Parrish, who I've never heard of. But anyway.
Wasn't he the center for the Celtics in the
80s? Yeah, that's exactly right. No, wait a minute. I think he was a forward.
Or no, I think Chief was a center. Yeah. He was
Yeah, that's true.
We got some comments from the peanut gallery here.
Yeah, sadly, he's the youngest on the panel.
I'm usually not. So anyway, let us move forward. not backwards. Now we can get into the younger generation a little bit. Jonny Greenwood.
I know that guy.
He had an 80s version of the Martenot that was invented by Maurice Martenot's son, named Jean-Luc. Not Jean-Luc Picard, but Jean-Luc Martenot, who made a digital version. And I believe it was basically digital control. The sound still sounded analog to me, but it wouldn't have been the string and drum approach. It was probably ribbon controller and then, analog oscillators, and maybe had MIDI control.
Right.
It's hard to even get pictures of this. The best picture I have, that you'll see later on, is one from a video where Johnny's talking to a reporter about it, or a journalist of some kind. And basically it's just, you can just see what he's just showing there, and he doesn't give a very thorough overview. But this was part of bringing back the Martenot approach, because being in Radiohead, he repopularized the instrument. And basically, I think it was from like the Kid A album and onward, he continued to use the Martenot in the music. So, and I think this is a time that by him doing it, I remember in the early 2000s and the noughties, a lot of the students that I had were going back to ribbon control and stuff, because I worked with electronic music students who would build a few things now and then, and they were going back to ribbon controllers and string controllers, and this might have been why, and so.
Well, you certainly can't argue with Radiohead's sound and their dedication.
Yeah, the sound.
Even if you don't care for their particular style, their devotion to audio is pretty apparent.
Oh yeah, the OK Computer was phenomenal for me. I mean, just for the sound. I mean, yeah, there are some style things there. You got to really read the lyrics to understand what's being said at the time. But
yeah, but they understand the atmosphere and the ambiance as well as any modern group, I think.
Yeah, and really have such a huge influence on electronic musicians that follow.
I trip out to it all the time. Well, not with actual trip, but just listening to the music. No,
allegedly.
I'm old enough to be done with that kind of stuff.
That's exhausting.
Yeah. The Ondeline. Now, this is something I'm mentioning at this point because that previous picture also included like the 80s version. There was a 50s version called the Ondeline. Now, we're seeing a plug-in view because there are plugins out there that allow you to try and model the Ondes Martenot, and also some of its related instruments like the Ondeline. Now, this was not made by Maurice Marenot. I don't remember. I think the company simply was called Ondeline, and but it was a very similar instrument. And this picture is a plug-in view, but you can also get a plug-in that models the Ondes Martenot, and it has a view that includes multiple things, but also like the left-hand controllers, so you can actually kind of click your mouse on them and use them in a way that's similar to actually,
if you're especially ambitious, you can make a custom MIDI controller that hooks up to that. But good luck.
Yeah, I would have. I mean, I would have, downloaded the plugin and included it, but it's for Contact, which is a Native Instruments plugin suite that I did own. But now that I'm running Linux instead of Windows, I can't install it.
Lovely. Oh, they don't have it as just a VST that you can
use?
No,
Linux instead of Windows. Yeah. Well, Linux does have VSTs, but Native Instruments specifically, you got to download their software.
Right. That's why I bet the Ondeline is not a general VST. It's a specific
Well,
to
it
contact.
is. It's not a general VST. It's for contact, but you could use the contact free version, contact player, to use it. But yeah, but I can't install what is it called, the Native Instruments Service Manager or Service Center. So can't demo it, but it looks like, yeah, people want to try the plugins out. They're out there. Just search for Ondeline, or you could search for Ondes Martenot for contact, and you'll probably get to the website where I found them. But there also is a video in the description where, and I think I'm going to try this. Oh, wait a minute. That's right. Remember, whenever I put something in, it doesn't play. So let me get my channel open here, and I'm going to give you guys a link, see if one of you can try and play this video, because this one I think would be good, because I don't know, I'd also like to try and have this gentleman on sometime. He might be a little bit too
But it never hurts to ask. You'd be surprised at who
well
might show up.
established.
Never hurts to ask.
Okay, let me see here. Very great. No, we're going to, there's the Jonathan. No, it's the other one. Okay, but it's from a channel called, oh, let me click on it to get the full one. It's a channel called Vintage Keys Studio. And I cannot, this is not it. What are you doing? That's the wrong link. Vintage Keys Studio Ondes Martenot. And here we go. He shows the Martenot and the, well, he doesn't have one exactly. He has an Ondomo, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But we might want to play this. Let's give this a risky shot.
Yeah, if you can drop it in the chat, I'll try and recreate what I did there. Okay, let's see. Okay, and then present screen, demonstration, audio, share. Anything?
Oh, I shared it.
Might have skipped through a bit.
Yeah, I want to get through the intro, but as long as you're seeing it, it's progress.
Yeah. From the Ondes Martenot, Josh Siemens. Anyway, it's good news now, because I've actually managed to fix this thing, and it's in perfect working order. So first things first.
All right, just give me a little direction what you want to see. So,
well, we're seeing some in this video. He talks about the Martenot and this version of it, and he also has an Ondeline in there. So I was just thinking we could actually just see a little bit of footage
to hear what one of these things sounded
and
like.
I'd like to invite this guy on. You know,
I'll
if he'd be willing to come.
Send him an email.
Drop him a line. You never know.
Me talking a load of old rubbish about it. So here is a piece for pianoforte and Ondomo.
We're going to be talking about the Ondomo. If you could pause it a second.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be talking about the Ondomo next. It's a later generation Ondes Martenot. Ondes Martenot, and it's very, it's something that someone today could really get into, I believe. And they are pretty popular. So go ahead and let it go.
Wow, the first thing I'm hit with is how similar it is to Hawaiian steel.
Yeah.
Wow.
Copyright, cover it up.
Just tell me what you want.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean
think
it's like it's like a diddly bow, but as an Hawaiian steel guitar.
there we go. I mean, I think that was, good enough just to kind of show these modern versions and actually hear a little bit of it. I mean, I'd like to crank out some Radiohead, but I don't think that.
Yeah,
Let's
that's
not
a
do that.
stunningly bad idea.
Let me just see if we can get a little.
There we go.
This one here, there's actually a 25 watt amp inside here, and you can drive an 8 ohm speaker from that. And I'll get to that in a minute because I've got it plugged into something. And then these two here are stereo
My bottom.
line outs. So I've got that going. We've got a combination of the internal speaker and the two line outs DI in.
That's a sexy interface right there. That's
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
That looks real good. Let's skip ahead just a bit.
An
Well, yeah,
old-fashioned
folks can
style
watch the whole video
ladder
afterwards.
resistor keyboard. So if you hold a note down there or there, the highest.
Cool.
Now, this is definitely, I think this is the Ondomo, right? Yeah, this is the Ondomo. So this is a Japanese instrument that was made in tribute to the Ondes Martenot. And the keys are different there. I mean, on the Ondes Martenot, when it had the keyboard, it looked more like piano keys, not these kind of like plastic keys. And they definitely had weight to them. And so, yeah, this is definitely different, and it's going to sound a little different. Like that tone there sounded a little clean to me compared to the Ondes Martenot, but it's still a beautiful instrument in its own right. And so the Ondes Martenot does live on.
Right.
Would you like me to close this out, or you want to see any more?
Well, if you see an image that strikes you, go ahead.
Let's hear a little bit about the speaker here.
Okay.
A palm diffuser, yeah, which is just like a kind of a speaker with a load of strings in front of it. I've experimented with one of them, and I've not nearly got one of those off to a T, but this one's working quite well. Inside is an old cymbal that I had from my old drum kit years ago, and it's got Metallica written on it, crossed out, and then I've written The Shadows. It's got a lovely box that my friend Steve Molster made.
As one does.
I really want this guy.
Yeah, let's give him a call.
Well, I remember his name, but every episode he says a different thing, and it's never correct. Like in this one, I think it was the Snoring Walrus. He really got a personality.
All right, so the link is in the description.
Yep.
Okay. All
It's
right,
about the Ondomo and other things. So yeah, I'll bring back my exciting slide presentation.
Well, you know,
he's got a studio of all this stuff, I mean, I've just got like
wish
4
I
Moogs.
I love like Alex Ball and Ben Jordan when they're like in a tour of it. It's like, wait a minute, that synth I've only seen one of ever. Why is that in your rack? Oh well, it's here on loan. Okay, but we're talking about the slide guitar sound to the Ondomo. It never hit me until recently. So everybody remembers Red Rider's Lunatic Fringe, right? They're not actually playing that on a normal guitar. It is a lap steel guitar that the sound that they're playing on it. It's one of the few rock songs I've ever heard use a lap steel guitar for.
Oh, yeah. I've seen them on like kind of like mini tables and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, stands.
Right.
Mini
Yeah.
tables.
The guy sits down and plays it. Right. Yeah. I mean, I knew someone that used to play steel guitar, but
on
of
the
course
lap.
it was always country western is where they played it.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it was electric lap steel guitar that's in Red Rider Lunatic Fringe.
That's cool. Well, here's a look at the Jean-Luc Martenot. And basically, I mean, it doesn't get thoroughly described, so the best I could do is just kind of look at some of the ports in the back, and it's got its quarter inch outs. Maybe there's enough shadows there for MIDI ports, but I could not find, a picture of this online or or a manual or anything. In fact, it was hard for him to find. Apparently, Jonny Greenwood came about, on tour in Paris and found one, in a used whatever store. It wasn't even music, and so just found one, and so they're rare too. And then after he really got into it, he kind of stood behind some other projects to help them get off the ground. Something called the French Connection, which is this version.
Is there heroin inside of it?
Yeah.
Saw what you did there.
Okay. Well, it probably could use it. Apparently, it was pretty cool, but not as cool as like the Ondomo, which is that one right there that we saw from our favorite friend, hopefully future friend, the Snoring Walrus. Yeah, as you see, it has a fairly like the controller that he had. It was like pretty cool. It had all the options on it, but it was made to look like, analog and worn and torn and kind of like there for a while. Right. And yeah, this looks like a pretty instrument to have. And yeah, so I don't know how much these are. Maybe Mike Gorley's already looked it up. He may have had to leave by now. Let me see here. How much is an Ondomo?
If you have to ask.
What the
yeah, I'm not finding sound on sound.
What a surprise.
You probably have to find the creator or something like that.
Just run down to your local guitar center. I'm sure they're selling one.
Not applicable.
Well, there's got to be one on eBay. Let me try.
Once every couple of years, maybe.
Yeah, keep searching.
But this isn't old. This is something that's more recent. But yeah, it is a project, Ondomo. Let's try eBay. And sorry. No, it doesn't even say sorry. It says no exact matches found.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
All right. So anyway.
Roberto, mass may be a generous term. I'm sure they were produced.
Yeah, it was probably not an assembly line. Maybe some of the things that were components of it came off an assembly line.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of standard ICs and stuff like that. But
alrighty. And then I guess we're going to leave ourselves with this. And this is what I hope to do next week. The Trautonium, which was a German invention from 1929, just 1 year later, invented by Friedrich Trautwein. And these, apparently, there is information out there widely available. Well, maybe not so widely, but there's information out there for building a Trautonium. In fact, I'm going to try a website right now, trautonium.org, and it does exist. Yeah, it seems to be managed by someone named Wolfgang Miller Verstoten. Or maybe Verstoten's a word. Wolfgang Miller and Verstoten means the works of Wolfgang Miller. So yeah, I'm going to investigate that more, because I would like for next week to see if we can build a Trautonium
Well, you've got a week. Get to work.
Just walk on down to the Radio Shack.
Yeah,
pick
yeah.
up a couple things.
They don't exist anymore.
Yeah,
I know, it's
DigiKey
bad.
is going to be backing up a truck to deliver all of the components for that.
No, but yeah.
R.I.P. Radio Shack.
Oh, well, does it exist in any form anymore?
I think it's a brand name.
Only in the sense that Atari still does. It's just a licensed brand name. I mean, for the last 20 years, it was nothing but a cell phone store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But back in the day, oh boy.
Oh yeah. Well, it's
I
like
remember-
Fry's Electronics, man. When I went to the West Coast and walked into my first Fry's, and it was like, oh, yeah,
Honey, hold my wallet.
Yeah. Call the bank. We're getting ready.
Well, now that we're at this point, what are some of your inventions, Jay?
Oh, I invent many things, mostly lies. No, I mean a lot of the musical stuff that I play with are, I started out with the old 8-bit stuff and using 555 timers to cobble together.
I know what that is.
Yeah, the most basic of tone generators of dubious reliability. And then lately a lot more MIDI driven stuff, just because I absolutely take my hat off to the guys who put together the MIDI standard in '83. Yeah, there's 2.0 now, but I mean that MIDI standard, it's still, they designed it so well yet kept it flexible enough that a basic serial interface that was kind of cobbled together because you had these competing standards for communication between synths, other than even CV gate stuff was, triggers and all that were a little different from one synth manufacturer to another. And then in a very short period of time, bunch of guys get in a room and say, okay, here it is, and it has stood the test of time, that we're still using it reliably and dependably 40 years later. Those are the kind of engineering achievements that I look at and go, man, I wish I had that kind of practical genius that you just look at the problem and you go, okay, we're gonna solve it for now, but we're also gonna to make it flexible enough to be able to solve all future problems. So a lot of the stuff that I do is MIDI based. I mean, I play with, I've been putting together some analog percussion circuits, just because of to get like the old Roland stuff. I don't I don't have the coin to go out and buy a vintage 808. They're a little spendy now. And then everything that you get now are just digital reproductions of them. And while they sound remarkably similar, I like to go back and see, kind of figure out, how did they come to this? Why did they make these decisions? How did they get these distinctive sounds? So most of what I do is just for my own edification and experimentation.
Well, sounds pretty cool. I mean, it's an adventure, and anybody that could make something that successfully, electronically produces sound, it is already impresses me to a certain degree, because I mostly am software, even though I do have a collection of analog synths here that I love very much. I'm not as much of a builder. My wife is more into that in a way, but
And that was because most of my career was programming, and so I certainly knew and put together some early 8-bit machines on my own, back when I could help all the leaded solder that I wanted to. But you transition away, and then the electronics, the speed at which they were innovating, you really stop being able to be home hobbyists that could also make something that is comparable to commercial stuff. Really in the late 80s. Yeah, there's some peripherals you could do and stuff like that, but everything had become VLSI, everything had become surface mount, and then the circuits, you have that Moore's law running at full steam at that point, that it suddenly became easier to do things in software rather than do it in hardware, because you just had this embarrassment of CPU cycles that you could dedicate to those things. But I think it's if you don't at some point kind of stop and take the time to go back to look at the fundamentals of how things work, where they came from, what were the problems they were trying to solve, and then how do things change over time. You really kind of get stuck in a cycle of what's new thing, and you lose the ability to kind of step back and take a more historic view. And I love going back and seeing. I mean, I love the geniuses of the mechanical age. Where these guys are solving differential equations with cams and rollers.
Mhm.
And a lot of those analog computers are still faster at certain problem domains than the fastest CPUs, because reality has a weight all its own, and if you make an analog system well enough, it has an ability to scale and be precise and with such speed that
Jay,
you
you
mess
don't
with the low
sound
point.
you don't sound like a purist to me at all. I mean, I think we both have a fascination with the process, but like in terms of making music, would you just consider yourself results driven, or?
I think
Well,
it's there's a combination of, yeah. If I get an idea or a sound in my head, then I very much want to achieve that, and by any means necessary get that. But I think the more interesting thing is when you experiment, you stumble upon things that you hear and go, wow, I'm not even sure I'd heard or thought of that sound, but I can now think of a way to use it. And it's interesting. And so I think that's why experimentation is so much fun for me. I'm going to buy a VST and it's basically all the synths in one. Well, you don't have enough constraints to really, breed creativity. If you have a goal in mind, those are the best tools for the job, right? But I think there's a difference between search, which is I know a thing I want and I just need to find it, and then there's discovery, which is I don't even know what I'm looking for, if I'm looking for, and I certainly don't know the universe of possible, and I stumble upon a thing. And discovery is always a lot more fun for me.
Interesting. I always kind of
so
wonder if you
yeah,
have like a mountain of vinyl collection, or
I mean, I got it all. I was an early adopter of MP3s. I was doing tracker stuff, with mod files. It was whatever the tools were at the time, and a lot of times it was, gosh, this, to get a proper sound studio with instruments and mics and mixer boards and all that, that's a lot of money. I sure can get close enough if I instead use the computer to do this and this and this and this, right? It's kind of how I got into computers to begin with. I was very much into special effects, and the camera's lighting and stop motion and motion control and all that. That's a pretty spendy proposition to get into when you're a kid. But when I saw Tron and realized, oh, you can actually make the visuals in the computer, then I was all in.
It's probably a good thing we didn't meet when we were teenagers, because
Oh, it'd have been a problem, yeah. Oh,
we
yeah.
would have set fire to the garage pretty quick.
Oh, yeah. As long as it wasn't mine, I made a set fire to other people's garages.
yeah. So Stitch has been saying a few things like loving the old school stuff. Fries.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone? Well, yeah. I mean, I can solder.
I can solder.
That's about it.
Well, you're halfway there.
But my wife does make preamps and, of course, cigar box guitars, and in the past worked with.
Do you guys have a online store, or you just making them for friends, or?
Oh no! Well, we're doing that. That is in the process of being done. We did markets. Yes.
I get you.
Since last September, we've been doing markets, and then it.
Okay.
You'd have some good markets when there's a shopping holiday.
I was
But then when there's
just
not
gonna
a shopping
suggest.
holiday, there's not too much need for cigar box guitars. So we,
Well, I was just going to suggest you
know,
should be pimping your stuff on the channel here, but I see what
well,
you're doing. I see it.
yeah, we're working on it. And in fact, I have to do more work in the garage. We need to clean out a bit more space because she's been cramped in her little office studio there, and there's just not enough room to be able to match a demand that may be coming, because she's getting requests for custom guitars, and she actually had to just say, all right, I need to pause on
Right.
the two people there, because it's like, okay, we need to, like, when she did the guitars for Mike Orley, she wants to be able to not be as slow as she was. So we have some equipment that has been gifted to us that we are going to be setting up in the garage.
Oh,
So,
very
gotta get
exciting.
that going. Yeah, got to do it though.
Great.
And
Well, and again, these were instruments that started out. These are poor people that I can't afford to go buy a Gibson or at the music store or whatever. But I've got this cigar box, and I can
And a
pick up
pack of
some
strings.
wood and yeah, and then get some strings. Or again, with the diddly bow, where, look, kid, we're not sure if you're actually going to be interested in this guitar thing. We'll give you one string, and you learn on that, and you end up with a different type of music between the slide and then the percussive, parts that they would do on the body of it, because you got one string. If you want additional sounds, you make it, and that's really, again, it's the your constraints and restrictions are what breed your creativity. And I've watched the kind of the home built instrument, cigar box guitars and diddly bows, and people winding their own pickups and creating their own resonators and stuff like that. I mean, it's really interesting to watch that, because again, people also, they're rediscovering how sound is made. You'll making a spring reverb isn't that difficult. But it's a thing that if you went to somebody that just got their EE, a couple of years ago, and told them to make a reverb, they'd just grab an IC and do it that way instead of using a plate or a spring.
No, I want something in a box that I can kick over on stage. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or tubes, right? Get a garden hose. You can make a reverb out of it.
Yeah, I just decided I'll pop this up here just to show you the mismatch. I mean, this is what's been intriguing me, especially VCV Rack, because it does give you that puzzle where you're trying to figure out, how am I going to make what I'm making, and you end up combining all sorts of different things. And basically,
and this is good for prototyping, right? So if you have an idea for an instrument, you've got a VCA, you've got, VCOs, LFO and all that, right? And okay, I'm going to put this together. But then if you said, okay, I really like this and I want to go to a circuit, you at least know, okay, I need to have these basic components, and the way that the sound, has to go through, has to be in this order, right? And so you can then go ahead and make it in the circuit board.
Well, for the Martenot, I'm just taking in pitch, which is controlling this oscillator. I guess you could see my mouse right here. It's a Bafaco oscillator, and basically it's oscillating a triangle wave, because I wanted it to have a few more harmonics than a sine wave, which have none, and give me something to filter. And then the LFO is just giving me the possibilities for vibrato here, allowing me to change the rate and the amount with just basically the same mod wheel.
Right.
And then after I filter with a low pass, and this filter does move with what key I play, so that it basically gives me the same relationship each time in pitch with the note that I'm playing. But I can also grab it here, and a Martenot player would need to grab it. Actually, it's right here. but I decided to use a simple filter so that, it'd be more like what they probably had. This is just a slew so that when I turn a knob on the keyboard, which comes in here, I can turn up the amount of time it takes to get from one note to another.
Right.
Like that. That way I can imitate the sliding sound.
Right.
And then we're just going through a spring reverb and into sound stage here where basically the two ears, A and B, are listening to this Martenot, I guess, sitting in front of you.
Stereo separation and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. And this also get perspective. Now it sounds like it's over to the right.
Right.
Behind you. Right behind you.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I dig it. So anyway, that's the software I've been playing with for several months now, just because it gives me the ease of playing with software, but a certain amount of complexity where I'm actually having to make some decisions about using this with that, and it basically forces me to be outside of the box rather than, just having manipulating parameters in a preset or something.
Right.
Like that. You got to select your modules, purpose them, and so forth. But
Yeah,
anyway,
I think you're
folks,
kind of at a higher level to, the if you wanted to recreate Roland, percussion instruments, that gives you all the tools, right? It's a matter of figuring out how to tweak this, how to do that, or whatever, right?
right.
That's the level that you learn how the sound should be made, and then if you just want to take the step down to actually implementing it in hardware, it's not that big of a leap.
I'm looking at what Mike has here. American style flutes that have.
Yeah, that the when you were doing the demonstration with with the Eurorack simulator, that does have there were times that you had kind of a pan flute sound to it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's you kind of notice about the Ondes Martenot is it has a woodwind sound to it in many of the ways that they do.
Very much so.
Yeah, that's what Mike was saying there. And actually, Mike, he has a few pieces that he's released on his channel where he's used VCV rack because he kind of like watched some of my videos and put together some patches, and then he combines it with his flute or maybe uses it as effects for a guitar sometime. But then he I mean, I was listening to his stuff for like a couple of months, when I'd release something, he released something, and I just check it out. It's the flute playing and so forth. And I kind of got used to a style. And then after a while, he just released this electronic patch using VCV rack. And I went and listened to it and watched the video. He has like a clown nose on, and he's got all this text on the screen and this fractals and just this, it was all out, like no holds barred electronic music craziness. It's like, man, it's the kind of stuff I heard in things like the Society for Electroacoustic Musicians in the United States, the Seamus organization.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like, high electronic music, electroacoustic music, art stuff.
Right.
And it sounds straight out of there. And it's like, damn. And like everything before that was kind of like this peaceful, relaxing meditation music. All of a sudden he blew that out. And I was like, wow.
It's like, now I'm going to get my freak on.
But that's my area. I mean, it's both things are my area. I mean, I also have, music for sound experiences for relaxation, meditation, and sleep that I work on. And yeah, it's just kind of cool. The areas that you can explore, and all of it is about stimulating the human mind, the heart, and then.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that like all three of us grew up at a time where the synthesizer was really being used in innovative ways to create soundscapes, both within movies or games or in music. the using pads to make what would normally just be a pop song feel orchestral in many ways.
Mhm.
And the time before that, people was like, oh, I grew up, the Beatles are great or whatever. And I was like, I listened to them like, I never was a huge fan of the Beatles. I understand their relevance and importance in music history, but they don't really, trip my trigger that much.
They don't move you, right?
Yeah. The listening to, Georgia Moroder or Vangelis or Jean-Michel Jean, they are really creating new styles and things that we had never heard.
Yeah.
That you could not really produce well with acoustic instruments. And so there was really kind of this whole new sonic landscape that we fell into, where it seemed like there really were no more limitations. That whatever you could dream up, you could make work and at reasonable, effective cost.
Yeah. I mean,
I like it
I-
all. I was fascinated by the expansion of options and
Mhm.
70s and 80s synth. Sequencing was, I think, like the first thing that I really latched onto as a young person that blew my mind. It was around 1984. I went and saw a Howard Jones concert,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a point that he had everything running. Like his backing people had left the stage. He had everything running with like 7, keyboard setups, different banks, whatever, and just walked up to the edge of the stage, and the song was still going, and he was clapping along and working the audience. And then, like, not a week later in Rolling Stone, there was an article about that show and or that tour at least, and the author said, Howard Jones could have dropped dead right then, and the show would have kept going. And that was a whole new paradigm.
yeah.
It's not something that existed before.
Yeah, and then really we have the right in that time frame you start to get the EMU emulator, the serious sampling machines, and Art of Noise, taking the most silly of sounds and somehow turning them into songs, by taking, it's a barking dog, but we can do that musically. Oh, interesting,
Mhm.
right? And
Mm.
but
Yeah.
again, the foundations go back to what we're covering now, right? That you don't have all of this if you didn't first have these innovators that start to play with electroacoustic sounds.
Oh no, it's all interconnected, and it's
Right.
all part of the excitement of a new medium, a new language being developed, simultaneously all over the world. Pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll be a joy trying to find out all of what's in the Troutonium. I don't think I'm going to find it all, folks. In fact, I know I'm not.
Well, you've got a week to build one.
But
Yeah,
I'm going to
yeah.
find out. Well, no, I'm not going to actually.
Maybe you can see if a local telephone exchange is
I could-
decommissioning all of their analog switchware. And
But I do have a goal. I should clear out the workbench in the garage so my wife can actually get equipment in, and so she can at least. I mean, our garage may not be perfect, but at least there'll be enough space for her to get the stuff going. So, yeah, we gotta move on it. We want to be independent artists and be able to do our own thing.
yep.
So
Well, I
anyway,
Wish you
folks,
all the best on that. I 100% support cottage industry and independent artists. Very excited to see what you guys can
Yeah.
do with it.
and I'm going to follow up with Mike Gorley. I'd like to, if he can do the week after, it would be great to have him on.
Oh, absolutely.
Change up the pace a little bit. So
Yeah,
it's,
do it.
so it's not like each week and new innovation. Just
Yeah,
kinda
have
play it.
some guests that know what the hell they're talking about. That could be
Well,
an interesting angle.
Hey, you're stepping on my gig here.
No, I mean
Well-
me. You can stay. It's fine.
Four
I
is a
got a
good
good-
number.
I got a good everyman thing going here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked. Well, it's not just that; it's just also just to show his music, and then maybe we could have a little more sound. Hey, Mike, can you play something like this? Hey, Mike, can you play something?
Yeah, we'll get there. What are we on episode 3? I think we're doing pretty well.
Yeah. Oh, we've learned how to get some sound in it.
Yeah, the main thing that and it's not 100% by a long shot, but the main thing with YouTube is pre-screening your clips.
Yeah.
Load them up a week ahead of time and wait and see if you get a copyright notice for it or not. You know, if it's a green flag, you can usually get away with playing some of it. It just means that you may not be able to monetize the show afterwards on the replay.
Right.
If it's a red flag, don't do it. But
yeah, they will strike you down.
Yeah, they'll take you right off the air. But yeah, if you pre-screen them a few days in advance, you'll start to learn what you can get away with and what you can't. Again, not 100%. We've certainly had plenty of problems on B-sides, but there are quite a few things. You know, if you're going to show individual creator videos, you're going to show garage guys, you know, with these instruments in their house and whatever. There's probably a lot you can get away with, and most of these people will appreciate a link in the description and a heads up and whatever, and be totally
well. And a lot of YouTube channels, if you actually look in the description, they'll say that it's the video can be freely reused. Like I know the
Creative Commons license.
Yeah.
And there's also a feature on YouTube videos which is allow remixing. And if that's enabled on someone's video, it's pretty easy. You just hover over the icon or whatever in the player, and if it allows remixing, you probably get away with it.
All right. Well, we're going to be working on that little by little. And right now, yeah, my wife's happy that I kind of committed myself to at least getting more accomplished in the garage. I mean, it's just overbearing when you have just too many.
I have the same garage. Yes,
Yeah,
it's a lot.
I'm going through and say, okay, I need to get rid of some of this stuff, and you're throwing away, you know, family photos and stuff like that. You know, you got to, because you just have too many, and you know,
it's a process. It never ends. It never.
Yeah,
ends.
I have a 20 by 30 shop, and of late I walk in there's like, what path am I going to take to get to the workbench, because there's a lot of stuff in the way somehow. You know, this was empty when I moved here. What the hell is going on? It's
yeah,
but this stuff is all important to me. This is all valuable stuff.
Yeah. And pretty soon it's going to be like, okay, should I just throw out the yearbooks from high school? I never look at them.
Yeah, I'm gonna die like a hoarder. I'm gonna be, you know, suffocated under an 8-foot stack of fucking old newspapers. And pardon my language. I'm sorry.
Well, if they have some value, yeah, but it's like I never look at these yearbooks. Why should I keep them?
Mine will be more like, why does he have 3 CNC mills that he built? Why is this in here?
Well, this is the good one.
3 was the magic number. Yeah,
this one just needs a little love.
Yeah,
it's
almost there. Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, thank you for joining me this week. And next week, we're going to probably do the Troutonium, or maybe Mike Gorley if he's really hungry to come on. But he's got to be coming on soon. And thank you for joining us, Stitch and Roberto. And
great to see you, there. Stitch.
So what are you guys doing on Friday? So folks can know in case.
Well, on B-sides, we have we did a beach themed show on Memorial Day, and we're gonna do a drive-in double feature this Friday. We're still nailing down the titles, but one of them will be Night of the Living Dead, and the other one is a little bit up in the air. But yeah, we're gonna do another summer theme show that seemed to be a lot of fun. Jake Goodwin will be there. Stitch will be in the chat as always, one of our most loyal followers. And then Wednesday, I will be joining Jay Diabolical Souls for Ghost in the Shell. I don't know if Goodwin is on that one or not.
Yes, I am.
Oh, fantastic!
And Little Platoon will be on that.
Oh, wow! Good company. Wow. Yeah, Ghost in the Shell, one of the greatest animated movies ever made. So yeah, it's gonna be a busy week.
All right, cool. Well, thank you for joining me this Sunday. And I'd be happy to join you guys one of these Fridays. Just tell me when. And
we're always looking for young Debs.
Yeah. Oh, that's no.
Jay's a big fan of the initiations. Okay.
that
We're
that-
we're pretty
that-
sure that is a stag film in the guise
I'm
of
quite
some sort
sure.
of documentary.
I
Yeah.
wish I could find the whole thing. It's got to be a couple reels long. But yeah, look, when we get a feature lined up with the appropriate music score, we'll be
Yeah.
very happy to have you on, Lawrence.
Well, I recommended that idea. What was it in Twitter? That one movie that's like a silent film.
Yeah, all you need to do
Basically,
is
we
if
read
you
off
do the
lines.
soundtrack for it, we'll
Yeah.
combine it, and then it'll be great. So
Write
get
that
cracking.
score, and we'll talk about it all night long.
We're gonna need
Well,
an
I mean,
out
I
of
could
tune
do it-
honky tonk piano, and
Well, we could do it just like them. I just kind of do it live, you know.
yeah,
Do it
yeah,
live.
yeah. We're doing
do
it
it
live.
live, and you guys just read off the dialogue.
Yeah.
All right. Looking forward to it.
All right. All right, folks. Thank everyone who joined us, and check out B-Sides on B-Roll Stage. Information in the description. And
Hooray.
I think we've covered it. So my wife and I are probably going to eat some food and then relax to get to bed.
Have your dinner and think about cleaning that garage.
It's a thought that
Yeah.
counts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you,
All
Lawrence.
right. All right. Thank you once again. And this is where I have to actually click something. So good night, all. Farewell. Thanks for all the fish.